Oops. There it goes. All right, so to win the blue ribbon for the heaviest pumpkin crop at the county fair, the average weight of Susan's 2 pumpkins must be greater than 819 pounds. That's a lot of pumpkin. One of her pumpkin weighs 887 pounds. What is the least number of pounds the second pumpkin could weigh in order for Susan to win the blue ribbon? Telling you, it's some big old pumpkins. I don't know. Maybe. All right, so does anybody see any keywords here to tell us about the inequality? Greater than. So the pumpkins have to be greater than 819. You're saying? The average has to be greater than 819, not the weight of one pumpkin. But I see what you're thinking there. So one pumpkin weighs 887. We don't know what the other one's going to weigh, but I know that the average has to be greater than 819. So how could I write the other side of the inequality here? Plus x, but I have to divide by 2. Yeah, so average is you add them together and then divide by how many there are. So I add together the 887 and the x, and then because I'm adding those two together, I divide by 2. So now to solve this, what would I do as the first step? I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. So I get 887 plus x is greater than 1638, I think. No, don't divide. What do I do now? Subtract 887 from each side. So I get x is greater than 751. And set up an equation and solve. Yep. So if I was going to make a graph, it's a word problem, so I have to think about decimals and negatives. Are decimals okay? Yeah, for pounds, decimals are okay. What about negatives? No. Okay, so luckily we're not going to be shading towards the negatives anyway, so that's not a problem. So I would put 751, open circle, shade to the right. Okay, now the question is, and I want to make sure you would know how to answer it. It says, what is the least number of pounds the second pumpkin could weigh in order for Susan to win the blue ribbon? Can it weigh 751? Is 751 a solution? It has to be something greater than 751, right? So 752, or maybe like 751.1, but not 751 exactly. It has to be something greater than that. Yeah, it doesn't have the equal to underneath. Exactly. Well, I mean, this graph basically tells me your answer. Now, let's say it had been multiple choice and it had answer choices like 751 and 752 and 753. Like, what would the right answer be? Yeah, do that one. So, no, because it says which one's the least. So this one's the least amount that it could weigh. I mean, even though this would be an acceptable amount, 752 would be the least acceptable amount. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So, example 6. Says the average of Jim's 2 test scores must be at least 90 to make an A in the class. Jim got a 95 on his first test. What grades can Jim get on his second test to make an A class? Okay, why do you think greater than or equal to, Mackenzie? 90 or above. So at least a 90 would indicate greater than or equal to 90. All right. The average has to be at least a 90. He got a 95 on the first one. Yes, Gage? Uh-huh. And then because we have to find the average, divide by 2, right? So to solve, multiply by 2. So I would get 95 plus x is greater than or equal to 180. So then I'd subtract 95. And I would get x is greater than or equal to 85. All right, so word problems, you got to think about decimals and negatives. So are decimals okay? Probably so. What about negatives? No, so make sure you don't shade anything negative. So I would put 85 and close the circle and shade to the right. Most of them are. There's a few that are a little different. All right, so tonight the homework kind of skips around page numbers. This one here, remember, that is not a 5, that's an S. So page S30, number 8. It's in that green section in the back of your book. Okey-doke. Yes, sir.